Join me today as we dive straight into painting some of Warlord Games' Hail Caesar epic infantry. This series starts off with us painting a division of Hannibal's infantry. This will be part 1 of a series that has lots to come. So let me know below which of Hannibal's divisions you would like to see painted next. Also, a huge thank you goes out to the fantastic team at Warlord Games for sending me out these samples. Welcome to another episode of Painting Punic. So today we're going to start part 1 of my Hannibal painting guide. So today we're going to be looking at the Iberian Scutarii, I believe it's pronounced, something along those lines. Anyway, there's some Spanish infantry that accompanied Hannibal across the Alps and into Italy. So we're going to look at how I paint those. So to start off with, I'm going to use German camo black brown just to prime the actual standard, just brush paint that. Then there's a variety of different colours you can use for the cape, so I'm going to paint them in different colours. To start off with, I'm going to use old wood for one, making sure I get the back of the cape, and also there's a little bit of the cape that you can get on the front there. And then to change it up, I'm going to use burnt red. Now the colours I'm using might not be 100% historically accurate. I was going a bit off what Warlord had done with their paints, as well as some of the stuff I could find online. I am not as clued up on this period as a lot of other people would be, or YouTubers out there. As you can tell, this is probably a World War II channel, but these were just too good to pass up. So I love the opportunity to paint these, and I've had a fun time painting them as well. Then for a black cape, I'm going with black grey. You don't want to go just straight black because it's just way too dark. So you want to use black grey. It's a really good in-between sort of colour. Now for the shields, I've painted some of them red. I'm going with yellow. Again, the design of these that I'm going with is really just all over the place. I used Google searches to sort of get an idea of what they would do, but a lot of it is just some ideas that I've just come up with. You know, God knows if what I've done is historically accurate, but I think it looks pretty cool, and it matches with what I found 50% on Google, at least anyway. And then for their sort of clothing underneath the cape, I'm using US field drab, as well as some sort of leather armor that you might see as well. These guys have got bits of like bronze armor that they would have stolen from the Romans and other forces, as well as stuff that they've just brought themselves, obviously. And then I use deck tan for the white, so I'm using that for their sort of shorts, if that's what they were wearing, as well as their shield, so parts of their shield, and also they wear like a couple of the models, going off what Warlord have gone with, some sort of like headwear. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It kind of reminds me of something you'd see off Star Wars, but it looks awesome. So they've painted that white, so I'm just going to go ahead and paint that white as well. And then for the wood, obviously I'm going with flat earth. That is just my go-to colour with wood. Now you can paint the weapons in that, obviously the spears, or if they've got pilums, as well as their shoes or sandals. I think they're more sandals than shoes. You can paint their sandals, as well as their shields. So some of them would have had some sort of bronze or silver plating around the side, but some of them would have just been straight wood, and that's what I'm going with. I'm just going to mix them up as if they've managed to acquire some good metal shields, as well as some bad ones just made out of wood. And then also the scabbard is going to be painted in that colour. And then, as I said before, they were bronze, but I'm going with brass for this because I just find brass just gives it that more of a goldy tinge to it. I don't want to go straight gold. I want to go with brass. I think bronze would just be a little bit too dark for this scale. And then the headwear that these guys are wearing have got like a little bit of brass or bronze that you can put there. And then for the silver, I use base lead belcher. Any silver will do. I mean, Vallejo do a huge range of silvers as well, so you can go with that. As well as I like to mix up the bits of the shield that you can see here. So I'm painting that silver. You can paint it in brass or bronze, whatever you want to go with there. But just as long as you paint it that sort of metallic colour, that's all you really need to do, I believe. And then we wash it in noir and technical medium at a 1:1 ratio. So I'm having to use these chaps to show you because for some reason I didn't film washing them. You will see these guys next week or in part 2 of Hannibal's army painting guide, but the process remains the same. It's just a 1:1 ratio of thinners to wash. Now we just go back over the same colours as what we did before, but now this is called layering. So we're going with burnt red to start off with, so all the reds, because there's plenty of reds to do. The key with this scale and with these miniatures is to determine where you want your eye to be drawn to and focus on those details. The rest of it you can just sort of rush through. So the capes and the shields are obviously going to be really important because that's where people are going to be looking, as well as the flesh. I think everything else, bar maybe the bronze colour, is going to be just a rushed jobby because you want to get these done on the table as quickly as possible. This stand probably took me about 2.5 hours to paint, excluding drying time for the wash. So I think that's pretty good for the amount that you're painting. But yeah. So then we go burnt red and flat red at a 1:1 ratio. So I'm only going to do like a couple of layers with following with a highlight on important things that I think the eye is drawn to. So like the shields, as I said, so these are going to get a burnt red and flat red, and then a flat red to finish it with a highlight, because I'm trying to highlight the importance of what these are to the eye. So flat red is what I'm going with next. Now, if you were putting these guys at the back and you were putting another stand in front of it, you could probably not even pay as much attention to the front. So not give the shield as much detail in that, and just focus really on getting those capes looking good and highlighted well. But I wasn't really sure what I wanted to go with, so yeah, just play with it. You'll realise what I'm trying to get at pretty quickly as soon as when you start painting a lot of these. I can imagine that you want to rush it through because you want to get the epic feel of what Warlord are trying to achieve here with this range. Now for the white, we just go back over it with deck tan. My process for all this just remains the same. So I'm just scratching a lot of the detail in and making these shields pop. I mean, you could probably just leave it at this layer color if you really wanted to, but we can hit it again later with another highlight, and it really does just help it pop and just make everything just look that little bit neater. But you tailor what I'm doing to match your painting style and to get the miniatures on the table a bit quicker if you want to not mess around too much with all these different colours. And then for the final highlight, I use white grey, and you can see that just really makes that shield pop. Look how good that shield looks, just with a nice bit of red and a nice bit of white on there. Again, no idea if it's actually correct, if that's some sort of like tribal or faction colour, but you know, one can hope. And then for the cape, I'm going over it again. I'm layering it with black grey. You can see, just getting it in there, making sure I'm getting all the details nice as you like. And then I go black grey and basalt grey at a 1:1 ratio. And that's just gonna make it pop. You don't want to go too much basalt grey because then it'll just become like a really stone grey looking cape. Somewhere in between. You could mix in blue if you wanted to go with that. That's a really good option as well instead of using basalt grey. It's up to you. And then for the shields, we go again over it with dark yellow. And you can see that I'm just scratching it in. Try not to hit the outer edges of the shield because that's where you want a bit of that bronze or wood just to pop on the side, just to make it look like it sort of wraps around the side of the shield, which it would have. And then because this is an important part, I'm going with dark yellow and flat yellow at a 1:1 ratio. I'm just building the brightness up here. So you could skip this step, you could go straight to flat yellow and just completely ignore mixing this in if you really wanted to. I just find this process really doesn't take that long at all. For the sake of an extra 5 minutes, you can really make those shields pop. Even if you were just doing this on your front rank, for example, and the second rank you're just leaving as just a layer or your base coat and then a highlight, opposed to a base coat layer and then highlight. So the highlight is flat yellow that I'm using now, and you can just see straight away that really does start to pop, and it complements that white grey really nicely. So yeah, really cool. It's really good to use bright colours because I'm very much a khaki and drab sort of painter. And then for the cape, I'm going with old wood again. So this is the last cape now, which is handy. And then I'm going to follow that up with an old wood and Iraqi sand 1-to-1 sort of ratio for the final highlight here. This is bright enough where I don't need to do another sort of layer and then highlight. I can just go with my base colour and then a highlight. So you see I'm just scratching it all in and then going, yep, I'm happy with that. And then I'm going over the brass areas again, just with brass. This is it, this is the final highlight, and I'm just building up the colour. Sorry for the focus there. And I'm just scratching it all in. You can see it just goes super bright, but it just looks fantastic. I think bronze really does work. Sorry, brass really does work for a great bronze at this scale. Now we're going back over the bit of clothing they've got underneath the cloak and little bits of leather armour with US Field Drab. Any sort of old wood, US Field Drabs, khaki sort of colour I think would work really nice. You can mix it up as well obviously, but there's very little of this that you see on these models, so there's really no need for that, it's just excess white. And then I use US Field Drab and Iraqi sand as my final highlight. So I don't want it to be too bright, even though they are very small, very small miniatures, I still don't want it to be too bright. And then for the wood, I hit it with flat earth again, and then I go back over it with flat earth and orange brown at a 1-to-1 ratio for a layer. So I'm doing the shoes and the shield and everything else. And then for the final highlight with the wood, I'm going with orange brown. So you can see I'm prioritizing the wood as a color that the eye is going to be drawn to, hence why I'm paying it a bit more attention. But it's really just going to help it pop. Don't forget the scabbard as well and any other bits of wood. Don't give the sandals an orange brown highlight, just leave it as the layer as the final highlight for the shoes. And then going over the metal in base lead belcher again, just drawing on the outer edges of the swords as well as the spear tips and the bits of silver that are on the shields. And you can see it's really starting to come to life now. And then we go with German camo medium brown, just for those sort of hard leather bits within those helmets. There's really not much to this at all. You could leave it as the German camo dark brown if you wanted to, but you know, for the sake of 10 seconds, you can really make them pop a bit more and your eye will be drawn to it. So to highlight those, I'm using German camo medium brown and orange brown at a 1-to-1 ratio. And I'm literally, and I mean literally, just adding a dot. Just a dot here, dot there, because it's so tiny. I'm using a 0.0 brush for this. My brush remained the same throughout the whole process. So yes, that's what I'm using. And then for the flesh, I use light flesh from AK Interactive. And this technique I'm doing now is pretty much just going to slap the paint on, give it a wash, give it a layer, and then a final highlight. Because the flesh is obviously really important. It's really what's going to make the figures stand out. So make sure you're getting the hands as well as the face and leg, or legs, and then hit the flesh with a flesh wash from Vallejo. I love the Vallejo flesh wash. It is really nice. You don't have to water it down. It's really not a strong wash. I think it is probably one of their better washes, to be completely fair. It's the best I've found for flesh in my hunt, at least anyway. Then I'm going back over the model. So I'm painting the nose, the cheeks, the chin. That's pretty much it with this. Literally just scratching on a little line here and a little line there. Believe it or not, there's lots of detail in these as well, so you'll be laughing. And then I'm adding little toes. This is just overkill if you really don't want to do this, but it does really help the figure pop, and it's just add a few lines here and there. And then a light flesh and highlight flesh at a 1-to-1 ratio. There's some Vallejo alternatives there as well if you want. And this is literally just adding a line, an even smaller line as what I did before, and just scratching in everything that you see in shot now that's a flesh colour. And then there we go. So they are our Spanish or Iberian infantry that have been painted up. I think they've come out really nicely. It was a really fun paint project. There's tons more that I need to paint. So 2.5 hours, I might have to try and condense that down to 1.5 hours. But there's more of a strategy that I think that comes to it. Next week, or part 2, depends on how the schedule works, we'll be looking at some other of Hannibal's infantry, so you'll have to keep an eye out for that. Let me know below how you found this video. Huge thank you goes out to my Patrons and YouTube channel members, as well as Warlord Games for sending me these samples. If you want to support the channel, there is a link to Warlord Games. It's the affiliate link. Anything you buy on there will be, a portion of that will be donated back to the channel to help support it. So if you could use the link, that would be absolutely fantastic. Other than that, guys, I will leave it here. Let me know below what you want to see next in terms of Hannibal's infantry, and I will catch you at the next one. Thanks.